Lifebrary, a podcast dedicated to your personal story. A story which is not merely a collection of events, but a powerful chronicle that encapsulates the essence of who you are. Understanding the importance of your personal story is to recognize the significance of your voice in the grand symphony of life. Let's get connected.
Hey, so today I'm talking more about um, a little journey I went through of understanding yourself, but more of like how you got there, and the ability to either accept it or change it. One of the things that I have heard a lot, especially at my age, is other adults saying, "This is just who I am," regardless if they like it or not. They tend to just say, "This is just who I am. I've learned to just accept it." And my questions always came to, but why are we the way we are? And what brought us to that personality? Everybody has this core personality, but things in their lives will alter some of that personality. And a lot of adults will come to a consensus of, I've gotten used to that. This is just how I am. And they want to change it, but they feel like they're just too old, kind of like you can't teach a dog new tricks type thing. So, my type of personality has been called many different things. So, I've been called too clingy, too loving, too trusting, easily taken advantage of, very gullible. And I've also received the other side of it where I'm too bitchy, I'm too aggressive, I'm bossy. Um, and I wanted to sit back and really think about in this last year what brought me to where I am today. What makes me clingy and loving and easily taken advantage of? Because that has happened many times in my life. But also what brings out that aggression, what brings out the assertiveness in me. So my life was surrounded by a lot of independence. I grew up in our Generation X era, the latchkey kids, the ones that kind of just raised themselves and did their thing. And it was also surrounded by addiction. A lot of people say that you left the home without a single addiction. How did you do that when everybody around you was addicted to something? And I always took it as maybe a compliment, like, "Hey, you escaped. How did you do that?" And I realized I do actually have an addiction. It's just not the addiction that we hear about in our everyday media life with drugs and alcohol. So when I was born to a younger mom, and in the '80s, early '80s, and that was not good. That it wasn't accepted at that time. It was a problem, and my mom had a lot of dreams and aspirations for her life. I come along and a lot of her dreams and aspirations were gone because of having to have me. That left a lot of anger in her life, and things didn't really work out between her and my biological father, and he ended up leaving. In that time, there's a lot of abuse, a lot of left alone, and the ones who really raised me were my grandparents. And I became incredibly close to my grandparents to the point where when my husband did the old fashioned, I need to ask your father for permission, he asked my grandfather because that was really the main man in my life. And I say that in a sad way because I do have a father. When I was 3, my mom met and married a man that she was with for at least 3 years before they got married. And at the age of 6, he adopted me after searching for my biological father to ask permission, which was by state law he had to at that time. Unable to find my biological father, they went ahead with the adoption and I was adopted. Him and my mom didn't work out very well. My mom still continued abusive tendencies, did a lot of physical abuse and scars that I still bear to today. Scar that is seen on my face every single day. I see it all the time. And it's something that I think about and I try to think of why? Why be angry with me when I was 6 and you had another child with my now dad, and he was like, I don't know, the shining apple of her life. So it was a very different relationship that my brother had with her versus what I had with her. When I was 12, they divorced, and in the 80s again, or this was actually early 90s, and even to today, if two people divorce and there's kids, it's usually the mom that gets the house and the kids, and the dad is the one that moves out, but my mom was the one that chose to leave, and she left my brother and myself with my dad. I sat there for the longest time wondering if my dad was going to keep me. I wasn't his. I wasn't his responsibility. I was 12. I kind of knew that at that point. And he never hid the fact that he was what we call a stepfather. Um, Not that he did it in a bad way, but he was always very open on me wanting to know who my biological father was, which, by the way, my mom never said. She would never tell anybody. And it was frustrating because my grandparents knew. He was part of my life from what I understood the first year of my life. He was around, but nobody would tell me under order from my mom that I should never know who he is. So, because I wasn't sure if my dad wanted me, which as an adult, I look back now and I feel bad for even thinking that because my dad has never not wanted me. My dad was an amazing father, took great care of me. But again, he's a single dad. He worked full time and really kind of left it up to me to help run the household after my mom left. And it was up to me to help take care of my brother. It was up to me to make sure dinner was done and the house was getting cleaned, things of that nature. But I still wanted to make sure that my dad would never kind of want to get rid of me or ship me off to whoever wants me at the time because my mom absolutely didn't want to have any kids living with her. So I became the overachiever, which is very common in the eldest child, the one that was getting straight A's in school. I was making sure that I was part of something in school. If something upset my dad, it would upset me. Um, it turned into I took care of the house while my dad started taking care of things in his life in a very different way. My dad was a labor worker and he constantly was in pain. Lower back pain, he had knee surgeries. To this day, he's had two hip surgeries. And at that time is when the doctors were prescribing pain pills and opiates. And he was part of the crew that became addicted to that. And that addiction really took over his life. And I was left even more on my own than I was before. So while my dad was never around, if he was, there was always these like, you know, weird people coming over in and out of the house. Anytime they would come over, they would like all hide in the basement. I moved my room to the basement, so they would be like on the other side of the basement. My dad would always tell me to go upstairs. There was phone calls, and when the phone would ring, you would hear my dad run into the bedroom and shut the door. And then a few seconds later, he'd be like, "I'm going," and who knows where he went. Obviously, as an adult now, I'm going, drug deal, picking up something. And that was the type of life I lived. So my mom drank a lot. My dad got into pills. And sadly, my brother, who's 6 years younger than me, um, went on that path as well and got involved with pills and drinking. And then there's me. I left at 17. I got into a huge fight with my dad and I just kind of left. And now I look back at it and feel terrible because I left my brother, and my brother was the one I was really helping taking care of. So while I'm 17 and I just get into his big fight and take off, now my brother feels twice abandoned. And I never thought about that until we became adults and talked more about it. So he didn't have his mom. And then, the only other mother figure in his life just kind of took off on him. So the addiction of alcohol and drugs in the family was very prevalent. My mom's side of the family, huge drinkers, always have been. It was not uncommon for me to hang out in the bars as a kid while families got together and hung out in the bar, and I would have a kitty cocktail and hang out, and I thought that was a normal thing. It's Wisconsin. It's very normal. Now we look at it and go, "You have a kid in a bar." Like, that's not that shouldn't be normal. That's not really where they wanna hang out all day. So the attention from my parents was always kind of absent. There was never that huggy moment or I love you moments. We don't do that in our family. There is none of that. Um, After high school, even though I left at 17, I still graduated high school. I was still very much in the mindset of I have to be the best at everything I do. And I still want you to like me. Um, I quickly got my own place. I always held a job. I've been working since I was 14 years old. I've always been working. And I joined the army now, which is funny because that is something that nobody would have ever saw me do. I said constantly through high school I could never do it. And yet here I went and did it because I really feel like I was just looking for the attention, the validation of like, yeah, you are a good kid. Sorry we never told you type thing. I realized that I was always seeking love and affection and like this deeper care. And therefore, all of my friends to this day, I've had for 20, 25, 30 plus years. I don't like to get rid of friends. I was always big on long term relationships. So, any boyfriend that I had in high school, I had one. And it was a 3-year long relationship. And then after high school, it was off and on for another 3 years. And we still communicate to this day. Um, I would say that I never was really good at setting the boundaries. I didn't want to rock the boat because I was afraid of losing the people that I felt like cared about me. So, yeah, I always let the wrong people in and let them walk all over me. And that's where people said I was always easily taken advantage of and I was gullible and listened to the wrong people a lot of times, mainly because I didn't know how to stand up for myself. I didn't want to. Because if I stood up for myself, then that would anger the other person and they would leave. And I think I've been left enough in my life. I didn't want to keep being left. So while there was some friendships that were on and off, um, there was some main ones that just stayed in my life. Um, the values I have in friendship started changing as I got older, and the more people that would hurt me, um, I became incredibly bitter. And in this last 8, 9 months, I became this person who like hated other people. Got very bitter towards other people and decided like I only want like one or two people in my life, and I started pushing everybody away. To me, I think I wanted to see more revenge. I wanted to get even. I wanted to see people hurt as much as they hurt me. I became very different, very angry. And I thought to myself, why am I at a point in my life where in my 40s, concerned as much as I am about what other people are thinking of me? And I've realized that I'm still seeking that love and affection. Now, my relationship with my parents have changed a lot over the years. My mom were off and on for a very long time. I learned that my mom suffered from a borderline personality disorder, and as does my daughter. And sadly, my daughter went down a really rough road with her diagnosis and also went into addiction. And so, again, my life is full of addiction. And I sat there going, how did I get out of that? And I realized I didn't. I was addicted to love. I was addicted to affection. I had people tell me that I'm in love with love. So it's not being in love with somebody. I love the fact that somebody loved me. And that almost makes you, as people called me, clingy. You become very clingy onto other people because you felt that affection for a few seconds and all of a sudden you grab it. And that really is my addiction. So while I may not have addiction to drugs or alcohol and I never got involved in any of that, I became very addicted to people and that wanting the respect from everybody else. And then that overachiever sense where I'm going to join this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to be so successful at it that when I pass away one day, like I'm going to have this legacy that people are going to remember me by. And really, it became an obsession. So now I'm fighting this obsession of I want people to love and remember me, but I'm also starting to hate people and I want revenge and I want to see them suffer in pain because they put me in pain. So the question really came up is, do I want to change any of that about myself or do I want to accept it? Because do I go back to the whole, you're an adult now and you are the way you are? There's no changing it. But is that true? I'm in a work of change. So I work in the criminal justice system. I work with youth that are involved in the criminal justice system, and I now work with adults that are in the criminal justice system. And I even hear my youth say that this is how I grew up, and it's just the way it is. This is how I'm going to be for life. And here I am being the change motivator while I myself am struggling with my own values and do I want to change? And I realize that I don't want to change. So, yes, I'm going to be addicted to love. I love to have people that love me, but that also turns into me loving them. I do a lot for other people, more than maybe I should. But what I've learned is you don't really know whose life you're changing until years later, or maybe you'll just never know. But you could do the smallest thing and realize that you did something major for somebody else, even though you thought it was minor. So, my values of friendship really went back to where it was. I don't wish anybody harm or I don't want to get even with anybody. I don't wish revenge on them. I really feel like that came from a place of hurt and just disgust on how I get treated for very little to no reason. Or there is a reason, but it's somebody else's issues that they have. Maybe I was too clingy and too loving, and that scares people. So they lash back out at you. And that could happen. And instead of really going down the path of now I hate them, it's going down the path of what made them the way they are and what hurts have they hit. And did I trigger certain memories or trigger anything that may be tugging at their heartstrings? So while they wanted to care, they pushed that away because they too have been hurt. So, yes, I can still be easily taken advantage of, but I've learned very recently, probably in the last 2 years of my life, so a little late, boundaries are very important and to keep your boundaries. But if you keep your boundaries, that doesn't mean that you're changing your core personality. And it doesn't mean that you're accepting something that you don't want to accept. You can change even as you get older. You can learn new tricks. My new tricks have been I need to back off on the idea of like everybody has to love me. Not everybody is going to. And I have to accept that. And I don't need to achieve world domination to keep my name in the memories of people that love me and to accept the people that love me. So I have a lot of people in my life that when I went through my journey, it was more of I lost these friends and I didn't want to lose them. And now what do I do? And I forgot about the people that have been there since day one. And that hurt them. So while they were always there for me and going, hey, like, let's talk about this, let's help you get through this. In the end, they're like, did you forget that I exist? Like, I've been standing here this whole time. And you're like focusing on like this one person or these two people over here. So it's opening your heart really to everybody that does see you, does care about you, and backing off the idea of, but I lost this person here and they have to love me because I love them. So it has to be that way. You can let that go. And that's really hard to do. You're accepting who you are while putting up your boundaries. which then is a catalyst and a motivation of changing. So in life, you can change. And I don't think that you should settle in your life with, I'm too old now. You can't change me. This is just how I am. If you don't like how you are, you can change that. You're never too old to change it. So that is really my biggest story of how you can change as an adult and still have the ability to accept a core personality of yourself. If you don't like it, you can change it. And if you like it and willing to accept it, then keep it. Make sure you're still loving yourself and not forgetting the people that actually do love you. There you go.
That's it.